The grip on Bruce Lee's wrist is crushing. Not painful yet, but getting there. 285 pounds of competitive strongman champion has just grabbed what he thinks is a random lightweight from the crowd to use as a demonstration prop. The strongman's name is Victor Bergstrom, and he has absolutely no idea who he just put his hands on. Victor is smiling at the audience, confident, performative, about to lift this small Asian man overhead to demonstrate the kind of raw power that wins world strongman competitions. The crowd of 300 people in the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium is watching with varying degrees of interest. Some are amused, some are concerned for the small man who just got yanked from his seat, and a handful of people scattered through the audience are frozen in disbelief because they recognize who Victor just grabbed. Bruce Lee's expression is completely neutral, not angry, not amused, not concerned, just present. He's been in this situation enough times to know exactly what's about to happen. The only question is how quickly Victor will realize his mistake and how much embarrassment the strongman is willing to endure before acknowledging reality. Victor tightens his grip, preparing to execute the lift. "Don't worry, little man," he says in his thick Swedish accent, loud enough for the audience to hear. "This won't hurt. Just going to show these people what real strength looks like. You'll be my feather for the evening." Bruce doesn't resist, doesn't tense, just waits. Because resistance right now would only make Victor grip harder, commit more fully to the lift, make the lesson more painful when it inevitably arrives. To understand how this moment came to exist, how a world champion strongman ended up grabbing Bruce Lee without recognizing him, we need to go back 4 hours to when this evening began in a way nobody expected. Santa Monica, California, the Civic Auditorium on Main Street, early evening, November 1970. The venue is hosting the West Coast Strongman Exhibition, a traveling show featuring Victor Bergstrom, the reigning world's strongest man champion, along with several other competitive strength athletes. They perform feats of strength, lift impossibly heavy weights, bend steel bars, tear phone books, all the classic strongman demonstrations that have entertained audiences since the vaudeville era. Victor Bergstrom is the headliner. He's 32 years old, 6'4", 285 pounds of functional strength built through years of training and competition. He's from Stockholm originally, moved to the United States 5 years ago to pursue strongman competition more seriously. He's won the world's strongest man title twice, placed in the top 3-4 other times. He can deadlift over 800 pounds, press overhead weights that would cripple normal men, carry objects that seem to defy human capability. He's also somewhat famous for his showmanship. Unlike many strongman competitors who approach their craft with grim seriousness, Victor treats it as entertainment. He jokes with the audience, performs comedy bits between feats of strength, and frequently pulls volunteers from the crowd to participate in demonstrations. His signature move is selecting someone from the audience, usually someone small, and lifting them overhead with one hand to demonstrate the vast gulf between strongman strength and normal human capability. Bruce Lee is not supposed to be at this event. He's in Santa Monica visiting a student who runs a martial arts school, discussing the student's training progress and teaching methodology. The student mentioned the Strongman exhibition happening at the Civic Auditorium, suggested they go watch for entertainment. Bruce agreed, thinking it would be interesting to see these athletes, to understand how they develop and apply their strength. They arrive at 7:30, the show already underway. The auditorium is about half full, maybe 300 people. Bruce and his student take seats in the middle section, several rows back, unremarkable positions where Bruce assumes he won't draw attention. He's wearing casual clothes, a simple jacket and slacks, nothing that identifies him as anyone special. His student is dressed similarly. They're just two people in an audience watching strongmen perform. Victor is on stage demonstrating his grip strength, bending a steel bar into a U-shape through pure, crushing power. The audience applauds. He moves on to tearing a Los Angeles phone book in half, making it look effortless despite the enormous force required. More applause. Then he announces his next demonstration. For this next feat, Victor projects to the audience, his voice booming through the auditorium's sound system. "I need a volunteer, someone lightweight. I'm going to demonstrate the overhead press with a human being as weight. Any volunteers?" Several hands go up. Victor scans the audience, performing the selection process with theatrical deliberation. His eyes pass over Bruce's section, then return. He points directly at Bruce. "You, the Asian gentleman in the 6th row. Yes, you with the dark jacket, you look perfect. How much do you weigh, my friend?" Bruce doesn't respond immediately. His student looks at him with barely concealed concern. Bruce could identify himself right now, could explain who he is, politely decline the invitation. But something in this situation interests him. This strongman thinks Bruce is just a random lightweight, someone to be used as a prop. The assumption carries within it all the prejudices Bruce has faced his entire life. Small means weak, Asian means passive, lightweight means powerless. Bruce stands up. 135 pounds, he calls back. Victor claps his hands together in delight. "Perfect. 135 pounds of human being. Come up here, my friend. Don't be shy. This is all in good fun. Bruce makes his way to the aisle, walks toward the stage. As he moves, several people in the audience recognize him. There are whispers, nudges, people pointing discreetly. Bruce can hear fragments of conversation. Is that Bruce Lee? No way, what's he doing here? Victor doesn't know who he grabbed. The awareness is spreading through the audience like ripples in water, but Victor on stage remains oblivious. Bruce climbs the stairs to the stage. Victor extends his massive hand for a handshake. Bruce takes it. Victor's grip is firm, testing, the kind of handshake that communicates physical dominance without words. Bruce's grip is relaxed, not competing, just accepting the contact. What's your name, my friend? Victor asks, still playing to the audience. Bruce, he responds simply. Not Bruce Lee, just Bruce, giving Victor every opportunity to recognize him, to realize his mistake before it develops into something more significant. Well, Bruce, Victor continues, I'm going to lift you overhead with one arm. It might feel strange, but I promise you're completely safe. I've done this hundreds of times. Just stay relaxed and let me do all the work. The audience is buzzing now. More people have recognized Bruce. The energy in the room is shifting from casual entertainment to anticipation of something unexpected. But Victor, focused on his performance, on executing his demonstration, doesn't notice the change. He positions Bruce, explaining to the audience what he's about to do. The overhead press with human weight requires perfect form and enormous shoulder strength. I'll grip Bruce here at the waist and hip, establish my base, then press him straight up until my arm is fully extended overhead. At 285 pounds of body weight pressing 135 pounds, this represents roughly a 47% body weight press, which is considered elite level in strongman competition. Victor is setting up the technical explanation, making this educational as well as entertaining. The audience is listening, but many are also watching Bruce's face, wondering when Victor will realize his mistake, wondering how Bruce will respond when Victor actually tries to lift him. Victor bends down, gets his grip established on Bruce's waist and hip. His hands are enormous, strong enough to bend steel bars, rough from years of handling heavy weights. And this is where we return to the moment we opened with. Victor gripping Bruce's wrist, preparing to execute the lift, confident in his strength and his control of the situation. On 3, Victor announces, 1, 2. Bruce's hand moves, not dramatically, not with obvious force, just a small adjustment of position, a shift of his wrist angle, and suddenly Victor's grip that should be crushing secure becomes unstable. Victor tries to compensate, tightens his hold, repositions his fingers. But Bruce's wrist keeps moving, keeps adjusting in ways that prevent Victor from establishing the grip he needs. Victor stops his count, looks down at his hands in confusion. Hold still, please, he says to Bruce, thinking the problem is that Bruce is nervous and shifting around. I am holding still, Bruce responds calmly. You're just not gripping correctly. The audience is silent now, completely silent. Everyone watching this interaction between world champion strongman and martial arts master, wondering how it will develop. Victor tries again, gets what he thinks is solid grip, prepares to lift. Bruce's body does something subtle with structure and weight distribution. Victor begins the lift and discovers that Bruce's 135 pounds feels like it's anchored to the earth. Not through resistance, not through fighting, but through some quality of alignment that makes lifting Bruce like trying to lift a tree that's rooted in the ground. If you're watching this story unfold and recognizing that 300 people are about to witness a strongman champion discover that strength alone isn't enough when facing someone who understands structure and leverage at Bruce Lee's level, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. This moment, this public demonstration that Victor intended as entertainment, is about to become the most important lesson about power versus technique that he'll ever receive. Subscribe to see how a world champion learns that championship doesn't equal understanding. Victor is genuinely confused now. He's lifted hundreds of people this way. The technique is straightforward. Get secure grip, drive through legs and core, press overhead. He has more than enough strength to press 135 pounds. But somehow this small man isn't lifting the way he should. Are you doing something? Victor asks Bruce directly. You must be tensing up. You need to relax completely. I am completely relaxed, Bruce says. And it's true. His muscles aren't tensed. He's not resisting with strength. He's just maintaining structural integrity that makes his body function as a unified mass rather than as discrete parts Victor can manipulate. Bruce's student, still seated in the 6th row, is trying not to smile. He's seen Bruce demonstrate this principle dozens of times. The ability to make your body unmovable not through tension but through alignment. It's one of the fundamental concepts of internal martial arts, something that takes years to develop but looks like magic when executed properly. Victor makes a decision. He's a showman, and this is becoming awkward. Time to assert dominance, to use his overwhelming strength advantage to complete the demonstration regardless of whatever this small man is doing. He adjusts his grip once more, takes a deep breath, and commits fully to the lift with maximum force. Bruce allows the lift to begin, lets Victor get him a few inches off the ground. Then Bruce's weight shifts again. His center of mass moves in a way Victor's strength can't account for, and suddenly, Victor is off balance. Not falling, but definitely unstable, forced to drop Bruce back down to prevent losing his own footing. The audience gasps. This isn't supposed to happen. Victor Bergstrom doesn't fail lifts, doesn't get thrown off balance by lightweight volunteers. Something is wrong, but Victor still doesn't understand what. He looks at Bruce with new focus, really seeing him for the first time rather than just seeing a prop for his demonstration. "You're doing this intentionally," Victor says, and there's an edge in his voice now. "Making yourself difficult to lift. This is supposed to be cooperative. You agreed to participate." "I haven't resisted at all," Bruce responds truthfully. "I've simply maintained my structure. If you can't lift someone who isn't resisting, perhaps the problem isn't with them, but with your technique." The challenge is implicit but clear. Victor's face flushes. He's being challenged on stage, in front of an audience, in the area of his expertise: strength, lifting, physical dominance. His entire identity is built on being stronger than everyone else, on being able to demonstrate that strength effortlessly. This small man is somehow negating that, and Victor doesn't understand how. "Fine," Victor says, and his showman persona is dropping away now, replaced by competitive ego. "Let's make this more interesting. Instead of me lifting you, you try to prevent me from moving you at all. We'll see if your structure is really as strong as you think it is." Bruce considers this. The demonstration has already shifted from entertainment to test. Accepting Victor's challenge will make it explicit, will turn this into a public competition between strength and technique. But declining now would look like backing down, would suggest Bruce can't actually handle the test he's implied he can pass. "All right," Bruce agrees, "but let's be clear about parameters. You use your strength to try to move me. I use structure to remain stable. No strikes, no grappling, just pure test of whether your force can overcome my alignment." Victor nods agreement. This is his wheelhouse, force against resistance. He's tested his strength against enormous weights, immovable objects, forces that would crush normal humans. This 135-pound man, no matter how clever with his positioning, cannot possibly withstand Victor's full strength. Victor positions himself, plants his feet in the wide, stable base he uses for heavy lifts. He places both hands on Bruce's shoulders, getting optimal leverage for a straight-line push that will allow him to use his legs and core, his strongest muscle groups. He's going to drive forward with force that would move a car, and this small man is going to learn that physical laws don't care about martial arts technique. "Ready?" Victor asks, and it's not really a question. He's ready, and this is happening. "Ready," Bruce confirms, his voice calm, his posture relaxed. Victor drives forward with enormous force. His legs extend, his core engages. 285 pounds of world-class strongman power channeled through his arms into Bruce's shoulders. The force is tremendous, easily capable of moving a resistant human being backward across the stage. Bruce doesn't move. Not because he's resisting with strength. His muscles aren't straining. He's not leaning against Victor's push. He's just standing there, aligned, rooted, and Victor's force is being channeled through Bruce's structure into the ground rather than moving Bruce's mass backward. Victor increases pressure, drives harder. His face is turning red from exertion. He's using more strength than he needs for most of his lifting demonstrations, and the small man in front of him hasn't budged a centimeter. The audience is absolutely transfixed. Many of them understand what they're watching. A world champion strongman, famous for his overwhelming physical power, is failing to move someone a fraction of his size. The physics of the situation don't make sense to anyone who hasn't studied internal martial arts, who hasn't learned that structure can redirect force in ways that make strength irrelevant. Victor steps back, breathing hard. Not from exhaustion, he's in peak physical condition, but from the mental strain of confronting a physical impossibility. He's pushed with enough force to move heavy objects. The man in front of him should have been driven backward, should have been overwhelmed by pure strength differential. "How?" Victor asks simply. "How are you doing that?" "I'm not doing anything except standing correctly," Bruce explains, and he's willing to teach now, willing to turn this from confrontation into education. "You're pushing against my structure, not my muscles. My skeletal system is aligned in a way that channels your force directly into the ground. You're essentially pushing against the earth, not against me. That's why your strength doesn't move me." Victor processes this. He's intelligent beneath the showman exterior, smart enough to recognize when he's encountering something outside his knowledge base. Can anyone learn this? Or is this specific to martial arts training? Anyone can learn the principles, Bruce says, but it requires understanding your body as a connected system rather than as isolated muscle groups. Strongman training focuses on developing maximum strength in specific movements. What I practice focuses on aligning the entire body to function as a unified structure. Different goals, different methods. One of the other strongman competitors, watching from the side of the stage, calls out, "Victor, do you know who that is?" "That's Bruce Lee, the martial artist, the guy from the Green Hornet. He's famous for this stuff." Victor's expression changes from confusion to embarrassment to something like wonder. He looks at Bruce with new understanding. "You're Bruce Lee. The real Bruce Lee?" "I am," Bruce confirms. "And I just grabbed you from the audience thinking you were a random volunteer. Tried to use you as a demonstration prop." Victor starts laughing, not mockingly, but with genuine humor at his own mistake. "I grabbed Bruce Lee and tried to lift him like a barbell. This is either the luckiest or unluckiest thing that's ever happened to me." The audience is laughing now too, the tension breaking into appreciation of the absurdity. Victor Bergstrom, strong enough to lift cars, couldn't move Bruce Lee standing still. The story is already writing itself, already becoming something these 300 people will tell others. Bruce is smiling now, the first time his expression has shown anything beyond neutral patience. It's only unlucky if you don't learn from it. You've just discovered that strength, while valuable, isn't complete understanding of power. That's a useful lesson. Before I continue with what Victor learns from this encounter, with the conversation these two masters of different physical disciplines have on stage in front of 300 witnesses, I need to know you're feeling the transformation happening. Drop a comment, tell us where you're watching from, and whether this accidental confrontation is revealing something about the relationship between strength and structure, between muscle and alignment. Because what happens next, the demonstration Bruce offers to teach Victor, this is where world-class strength meets world-class technique, and both men emerge enhanced. Victor is experiencing something rare for him, genuine curiosity about a physical capability he doesn't possess and doesn't understand. He spent years developing strength, becoming one of the strongest humans alive. But standing in front of him is someone who just made that strength irrelevant through a different kind of physical mastery. "Can you teach me?" Victor asks. "Not to replace my strength training, but to enhance it, to understand what you're doing so I can integrate it into my own training." Bruce considers this. He's been asked to teach countless people, but rarely by someone of Victor's caliber in a different physical discipline. A world champion strongman wanting to learn from a martial artist represents openness of mind that Bruce respects. "I can teach you some principles," Bruce says, "but we should probably do this off stage. Your audience came to see feats of strength, not a martial arts lecture." Victor looks at the audience, then makes a decision. "Actually, I think they'd love to see what you can do. What we just experienced was more impressive than anything I had planned for tonight. Would you be willing to demonstrate, to show these people what martial arts mastery actually looks like when it's real, not movie choreography?" Bruce hesitates. This wasn't his show. He came as a spectator. But the opportunity to demonstrate real martial arts to an audience that's just witnessed something that challenged their assumptions about strength versus technique, that's valuable. These people have seen Victor fail to move Bruce. Now showing them why, demonstrating the principles in a way they can understand, that serves the larger goal of helping people understand martial arts as legitimate science rather than mystical performance. "All right," Bruce agrees, "but not as entertainment, as education. I'll demonstrate specific principles that explain what you just experienced." Victor steps back, cedes the stage to Bruce. The audience settles into attentive silence. They've just seen something unexpected. Now they're going to learn what it meant. Bruce addresses the audience directly. What Victor experienced isn't magic or mystery. It's applied understanding of human biomechanics. When you stand with proper alignment, your skeletal system can support and redirect force far more efficiently than muscular tension can. Victor tried to push me backward, but because my structure was correctly aligned, his force traveled through my bones into the ground. He was literally pushing against the earth, not against my muscles. Bruce gestures to Victor. "Victor, push against my shoulder again, but this time I'll show the audience what changes when I break my alignment." Victor places his hand on Bruce's shoulder, applies moderate pressure. Bruce remains unmovable, then deliberately shifts his posture, breaks the structural alignment. Victor's pressure immediately moves Bruce backward several steps. "See the difference?" Bruce says to the audience. "When I'm aligned, I'm stable. When I break alignment, Victor's strength moves me easily. Same strength from Victor both times. Different structure from me. Structure is what determines whether force is transferred or absorbed." He continues demonstrating, showing how small changes in stance, in weight distribution, in skeletal alignment create dramatic differences in stability. Victor participates, pushing from different angles, applying different amounts of force, helping Bruce illustrate the principles clearly. The demonstration evolves. Bruce asks Victor to try to grab his wrist again, like he did at the beginning. Victor does, using his full grip strength, the same strength that bends steel bars. Bruce rotates his wrist using minimal movement and specific angle, and Victor's crushing grip loses its purchase. Not because Bruce is stronger than Victor, absurd on its face, but because Bruce understands leverage points in the grip that Victor's raw strength doesn't account for. Strength is valuable, Bruce explains while demonstrating. Victor's strength is real, it's impressive, it's the product of years of dedicated training. But strength without understanding of leverage and structure has limitations. Victor can lift enormous weights when the application is straightforward. But when facing someone who understands how to neutralize strength through positioning and technique, pure force becomes less effective. Victor is absorbing all of this, his analytical mind working through the implications for his own training. So, if I learned these principles, I'd become even stronger, not in terms of how much I can lift, but in terms of how effectively I can apply my strength? Exactly, Bruce confirms. Your strength is already exceptional. Adding sophisticated understanding of leverage and structure would make you far more capable in situations where brute force alone isn't sufficient. They work through several more demonstrations. Bruce shows how to escape from holds using joint manipulation rather than strength, how to redirect force using angles rather than blocking, how to generate power from structure rather than muscular tension. Each principle is demonstrated clearly, explained simply, made accessible to the audience regardless of their martial arts knowledge. 30 minutes pass this way. The Strongman exhibition has transformed into a martial arts seminar, and the audience is completely engaged. They came expecting to see men lift heavy things. Instead, they're learning fundamental truths about how human bodies work, how force and structure interact, how intelligence can overcome raw power. Finally, Victor asks the question the audience has been waiting for. Bruce, could you actually defeat me in a real fight? Strength against technique, no rules, genuine confrontation. It's the hypothetical everyone thinks about when strength meets martial arts. The question has no good answer because context matters, because real fight has too many variables. But Bruce addresses it honestly. If we fought standing, if it remained striking distance, I'd have significant advantages. My speed, precision, knowledge of vital targets, all of these would give me opportunities to end the confrontation quickly. But if you got your hands on me solidly, if you could use your weight and strength in grappling range, you'd have significant advantages. My technique could help me escape or counter, but your strength differential is substantial. The outcome would depend on who could impose their preferred range and method. It's an honest answer that respects both skill sets. Victor appreciates it. So neither approach is superior. They're just optimized for different scenarios. Correct, Bruce confirms. The mistake people make is assuming one thing is always better than another. Strength is better for some things. Technique is better for others. The wisest approach is developing both, understanding when each is appropriate. They shake hands again, but this time it's different. Not Victor trying to establish dominance through grip, not Bruce avoiding engagement. Just mutual respect between masters of different physical disciplines who've both learned something from this unexpected encounter. The audience gives them a standing ovation. Not for the feats of strength they expected, but for the demonstration of intellectual honesty, mutual respect, and willingness to learn that they witnessed instead. Victor's Strongman exhibition continues after Bruce returns to his seat, but the energy has shifted. The remaining demonstrations are still impressive, but they're contextualized now by what the audience learned. Strength is valuable. Technique is valuable. Understanding the relationship between them is more valuable than either alone. After the show ends, Victor finds Bruce in the lobby. They exchange contact information. Victor wants to train with Bruce, to learn these principles more deeply. Bruce agrees, suggesting Victor visit his school in Los Angeles, spend some time understanding martial arts from the inside rather than as an observer. Over the next 8 months, Victor makes regular visits to Bruce's school, trains with Bruce and his students, learns Wing Chun basics, Jeet Kune Do principles, concepts about body mechanics that never appeared in strongman training. He doesn't abandon strength training, that remains his foundation, but he enhances it with understanding of structure, leverage, and efficiency. The changes show in his competition results. Victor becomes more effective in the events requiring technique along with strength. The truck pull improves because he learns better positioning and force application. The farmer's walk becomes more efficient because he discovers how to carry heavy objects using skeletal structure rather than pure muscular tension. He doesn't become a martial artist, that's not his goal, but he becomes a more complete strongman by learning from a discipline entirely outside his normal training. That's the truth about mastery that this accidental encounter revealed. That expertise in one area doesn't preclude learning from others. that Victor Bergstrom, world champion strongman, could grab a random lightweight from the crowd and discover that person possessed knowledge his years of strength training never provided. That being willing to learn when you discover your understanding is incomplete is what separates good athletes from great ones. If this story revealed something about how openness to learning enhances mastery rather than diminishing it, subscribe so you never miss these lessons. Comment below, tell us where you're watching from and what this taught you about the relationship between different forms of physical excellence. Let's build understanding together. The story of Victor grabbing Bruce Lee from the crowd spreads through both the strongman community and martial arts world. It becomes a favorite anecdote, told and retold, sometimes accurately, sometimes embellished. But the core truth remains constant. A world champion at the peak of his physical power encountered someone whose mastery came from a completely different source and was humble enough to recognize the value of that mastery. Years later, Victor is interviewed for a strongman documentary. The interviewer asks about his training philosophy, what makes him effective. Victor's response references the Bruce Lee encounter without naming Bruce specifically. "I used to think strength was everything," Victor says in the interview. "I was the strongest man in the world, could lift more than almost anyone. But I met someone who showed me that strength is just one tool. Understanding how to apply strength, when to use it, how to enhance it through technique and positioning, that's what separates adequate strength from masterful strength. I learned more from being unable to move a man half my size than I learned from winning world championships. Because championships prove you're better than your competition. That encounter proved I had room to grow even after reaching the top." Bruce Lee, for his part, occasionally tells the story to his students when teaching about the importance of remaining humble and open to learning. He uses Victor as an example of how genuine masters respond when their understanding is challenged. "Victor could have gotten angry," Bruce tells his students. "Could have seen his failure to lift me as embarrassment, could have resented me for exposing limitations in his approach. Instead, he asked to learn. That's the mark of a true champion. Not someone who never fails, but someone who treats failure as an opportunity to grow." The 300 witnesses to that evening's events carry the memory with varying degrees of detail. Some remember the specific demonstrations. Others remember the feeling in the room, the sense of witnessing something significant. All of them remember the lesson at the heart of it. That strength and technique aren't opposed. That mastery in one area doesn't complete your understanding. That the willingness to learn from anyone who can teach you something true is what allows continuous growth even after reaching the pinnacle of your discipline. Victor Bergstrom grabbed a random lightweight from the crowd thinking he'd found a convenient prop for his strength demonstration. Instead, he found Bruce Lee and learned that mastery has many forms, that physical excellence comes in different packages, that the strongest man in the world still has things to learn from someone who weighs 135 pounds. The grab that was supposed to demonstrate Victor's overwhelming strength became a demonstration of something more valuable, the willingness to recognize when your understanding is incomplete, the humility to learn from sources outside your discipline, the wisdom to treat unexpected challenges as opportunities rather than threats. 300 people witnessed a strongman champion try to lift Bruce Lee and fail. 300 people saw Victor Bergstrom's genuine curiosity overcome his ego. 300 people learned that true strength includes the strength to admit what you don't know and seek knowledge from those who do. He had no idea it was Bruce Lee. That ignorance created an encounter that taught both men more than a planned demonstration ever could. Victor learned that strength needs understanding. Bruce learned that even the strongest champions can have the humility to become students. And 300 witnesses learned that mastery, regardless of discipline, requires the same fundamental quality. The openness to recognize that learning never stops, that excellence is never complete, that even legends have room to grow if they're wise enough to seek growth from anyone who can provide it.